A young man killed 3 of his friends in cold blood after they had given him shelter, fed him, and offered him a place to stay. He betrayed them, stole from them, and left them dead without mercy. I am Santa, and this is a true story that will shock you. They were 3 young men from Mexico, living together in the United States. They were not rich, but they worked hard, shared rent, shared meals, and tried to build a life far from home. Their names were Carlos, Diego, and Mateo. All 3 of them had been in the States for a couple of years, long enough to find jobs in construction and restaurants, long enough to feel a little stability. They were survivors, bound not only by their nationality, but by the brotherhood that forms when immigrants live shoulder to shoulder in a foreign land. One evening, as Carlos was returning from work, he saw a young man sitting near a gas station dumpster. He looked rough, thin, and hungry. His clothes were dirty, his face pale. He was also Mexican. His name, he said, was Javier. He had arrived from Mexico recently, but things hadn't gone well. No home, no money, no job. He was living on scraps, sometimes sleeping on the street. Carlos felt pity. He called Diego and Mateo and said, "There's a guy here. He's from home. He's got nothing. We can't just leave him like this." The 3 talked it over, and despite their own struggles, they decided to help. They brought Javier into their small apartment. They shared food with him. They gave him clean clothes. They made space for him to sleep on the couch. For Javier, it was like salvation. He thanked them again and again, swore he would work hard, swore he would repay their kindness. At first, things seemed fine. Javier was quiet, polite. He cleaned the dishes, helped with groceries when he could, and acted grateful. The 3 friends started looking for a job for him. Carlos asked at his construction site. Diego asked at the restaurant. Mateo asked around at stores. But week after week, no one was hiring. Javier had no papers, no experience in English, and no money to move around. The weeks turned into a month. The month turned into 2. Still no job. By now, Javier was frustrated. He smoked constantly, pacing around the apartment. He asked for money often, small amounts, just for cigarettes or bus fare. The friends gave him what they could, but they noticed his attitude changing. He was no longer the humble, grateful man they had met. He snapped when they reminded him about finding work. He grew bitter when they talked about their own jobs. And deep inside, something darker was brewing, a resentment he never voiced. Then came the breaking point. One evening, Diego suggested to the others, "Maybe it's time we send Javier back home. He has family in Mexico. We can help him with a bus ticket or maybe even a plane ticket. He'll be better off there." Mateo agreed. Carlos hesitated, but he knew they couldn't keep carrying him forever. Javier heard them. He said nothing, but his face hardened. The thought of being sent back as a failure filled him with rage. Days later, the plan was made. They would buy Javier a ticket back to Mexico the following week. That night, Javier lay awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling. He felt betrayed. They brought me here just to throw me away, he thought. They want to get rid of me like garbage. His anger twisted into something violent. The following morning, when Diego and Mateo stayed home from work to rest, Javier decided to act. He prepared tea for them, stirring crushed sleeping pills into their cups. He had been hoarding those pills for weeks. The 2 friends drank without suspicion. Within an hour, they were groggy, half asleep on the couch. Javier thought they were completely out, but they weren't. He began rifling through drawers, pulling out wallets, watches, anything he could find. That's when Mateo stirred. His eyes opened, and he saw Javier going through their belongings. "What are you doing?" Mateo's voice was weak but clear. Panic shot through Javier. In a blind impulse, he grabbed a kitchen knife. He lunged at Mateo and stabbed him in the chest. Mateo gasped, tried to fight, but the drugs slowed him. His body went limp. Diego, half conscious, heard the struggle. He tried to rise, but his legs were heavy. He saw Javier, knife dripping with blood, standing over Mateo's body. He tried to crawl away, but Javier turned and stabbed him too. Once, twice, 3 times. Diego collapsed beside his friend. 2 bodies. Silence. Javier stood in the apartment, breathing hard. His hands shook. He hadn't planned this, not like this. But now it was done. He thought he had time to gather everything. He pulled out backpacks, filled them with cash, clothes, electronics. He moved fast, wiping surfaces, trying to erase evidence. But just as he zipped the bag, the front door opened. Carlos had returned early from his shift. He stepped inside, cheerful, carrying food. He froze. The scene before him was a nightmare. Diego and Mateo lay motionless, blood pooling beneath them. Javier stood in the center, knife in hand. For a split second, their eyes locked. Carlos dropped the food. "Javier, what did you do?" Javier's face twisted. He couldn't let Carlos live. With a scream, he rushed forward. Carlos tried to fight back, grabbed a chair, but Javier was fueled by panic and rage. The struggle ended with Carlos falling to the ground, Javier plunging the knife into him again and again. When it was over, 3 bodies lay in the small apartment. Javier stood over them, panting. His friends, the men who had given him food, shelter, and kindness, were now dead by his hand. He wiped the knife, grabbed the bags, and left. But fate would not let him get away so easily. Later that evening, a friend of Carlos named Raul decided to stop by. He knocked, but no one answered. The door was slightly open. He stepped inside and was hit with the metallic smell of blood. His eyes widened in horror as he saw the bodies. Raul staggered back, pulled out his phone, and called the police immediately. Within minutes, officers arrived. They secured the scene, identified the victims, and quickly pieced together what had happened. Raul told them about Javier, the man who had been staying with them for weeks. He gave them his name, his description, everything he knew. By the time the police issued alerts, Javier was already on his way to the airport. He had bought a last-minute ticket to Mexico City with stolen cash. He thought once he crossed the border, he would be free. He checked in, boarded the plane, and believed he had escaped justice. But when the plane landed in Mexico City, officers were waiting. U.S. authorities had alerted their Mexican counterparts. As Javier walked through the terminal, trying to blend in, a group of federal police surrounded him. He froze. His escape was over. He was arrested on the spot, his bags full of stolen possessions. The news of his arrest spread quickly. People were shocked at the brutality, the way he had killed 3 men who had shown him nothing but kindness. He was extradited back to the United States to face trial. The evidence was overwhelming. Raul's testimony, the stolen goods, the forensic match to the knife. Javier was convicted of triple homicide and sentenced to life in prison without parole. And so, the story ends not with Javier's freedom, but with his downfall. A man who could have started anew, who could have been saved by the generosity of 3 friends, chose instead to repay them with betrayal and murder. If you were shocked by this story, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more real, chilling stories that reveal just how dark human nature can be.